As you start to watch this video, you may ask yourself, does the internet really need another out of shape, overgrown man-child reminiscing about video games? The answer to that question is, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Super Wrestlemania was the first game I owned on the Super Nintendo. My two older brothers and I got the console as a joint present for Christmas '92, and our parents allowed us to each pick a game. The unit was already packed with a copy of Street Fighter II World Warrior, so I chose Super Wrestlemania. My middle brother wisely selected Super Mario World, and finally my eldest and most peculiar brother chose to buy an Action Replay cartridge, something I could not fathom at the time. As an 8-year-old, the build-up and anticipation to play the console was unbearable. It was made worse after we found the sealed box in my parents' wardrobe weeks before Christmas Day and used to regularly sneak it out to take a look at the artwork on the back. While we were overjoyed to finally play the console, Super Wrestlemania in hindsight was, and still is, a pretty miserable experience. However, at the time, as a young boy that was obsessed, but also starved of wrestling content, this was the greatest experience my undeveloped little mind had known. You see, in the UK, you had to have satellite television to watch WWF, and this was a luxury we did not possess.
Or the natural disasters with the World Wrestling Federation.
Don't miss WWF Superstars Fridays at 9 p.m. on Sky 1.
I was reliant on a friend of my mum's to record the big events on VHS and share them with us. I ask you, is there any better way to enjoy the wrestling of the 90s than through the haze of VHS tracking lines? While the wrestling business might have been starting a slight downward turn in the US, it was reaching a fever pitch of popularity abroad. To my mind, wrestling is America's greatest ever export, closely followed by all that freedom it's exported over the years. So, when Super Wrestlemania graced my Super Nintendo, it was like a lifeline to the wrestling world I longed for. Sure, the game itself was clunky, and the graphics made each wrestler look like a depressed walnut, and the controls felt like you were wrestling a bag of wet spaghetti. But none of that mattered. It was my window into the larger-than-life characters and the excitement of the squared circle. I'm still bitter that my parents didn't take me to Wembley Stadium for SummerSlam '92. But who needs live events when you can experience it all through a tiny CRT screen with pixelated wrestlers? So, despite being forced to slam the controller buttons awkwardly and repetitively in the game's awful tug-of-war grapple system, controlling pixelated versions of Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker and Macho Man made me feel like I was in the ring. This illusion was only slightly broken by the frequent and identical grunts each wrestler made when struck, that sounded like they had been mortally wounded. Lex Luger would have been proud of that performance.
Determination, the heart. Yeah, and he wants man Randy Savage to be the world hair champ. A little bit every man into the corner, and Savage.
I remember I used to listen to the wrestlers' recreated MIDI entrance music and use it to walk my WWF Hasbro figures to their toy ring. Let's take a listen to two of the best renditions, Hulk Hogan and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. A side note here, if you own the appropriate Super Nintendo EverDrive style cartridge, you can get awesome ROM hacks for the sequels to this game, which include CD quality music. It's definitely worth a look. At least the original Super Nintendo songs were better quality than those heard on the Sega Mega Drive. But, to give the Mega Drive version some credit, unlike the Super Nintendo, it actually included special moves and you were able to play as the Ultimate Warrior, although disappointingly he wasn't dressed in his Mankini muscle painted singlet from SummerSlam 92. Super Wrestlemania marked the start of a series of 16-bit wrestling games developed by Sculptured Software. This included WWF Raw Rumble and WWF Raw, but the pinnacle for me, and a holy grail that I never owned as a child, was the Mega CD's Rage in the Cage. This had full motion videos of the wrestlers' special moves, cage matches, and a staggering 20 wrestlers to choose from, the most seen in a WWF game up to that point. The early 90s were a magical time for me, and the excitement of those simulated matches, though not as epic as the real thing, are etched into my memory. And that's the beauty of video games. They have the power to transport us, to allow us to dive headfirst into the worlds we love. Super Wrestlemania might not have aged well, but for me it's a time capsule of my childhood, a reminder of the excitement, the thrill and the pure joy of experiencing wrestling. Thanks for joining me in this trip down memory lane. I'd love to hear your nostalgic game stories. Did you have a game that transported you to a world you loved? Share your memories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more gaming stories and nostalgia. Until next time, keep gaming my friends.